Nunejan, this week we're celebrating different anniversaries having to do with the Gharapagh movement, the Gharapagh conflict, the liberation of Karvajar or Kelpachar. You belong to the generation of Armenians who witnessed the beginnings of the Gharapagh movement, who were actively engaged in the processes of independence, of the liberation of Gharapagh, you know, a forgotten lost piece of Armenian historic lands. Today, 25 years later, there's a new breed of activists that are our children. How does it feel for you when you look back on those years and then you see the stirrings of a new kind of movement taking place in Armenia?
It's interesting that you actually bring this kind of parallel. But I don't think that these movements are similar, frankly. Okay. Because when we, I can't say that I was an activist, but in the same time in 1988, almost all people have been activists, really. It was amazing movement which gave us so many happiness on that particular moment, because we were so idealistic, we were so romantic, and we, in the same time, we didn't know who is in fact our enemy sometimes. Do we have this enemy? Because we really believe that what we want, it will happen, but we didn't understand what will be the circumstances and what will come after that. We were really, I would say, blind romantics. I mean the public in general. Of course, there have been some people who had better vision and who have been much more the part of the leading groups of this movement. But I'm talking about the young people who have been really supporters of these movements, and we spent so much time on a theatrical square during all these meetings, demonstrations. We have been active participants of this, but we didn't know what will happen. And this is maybe the difference between us and between the young generation now, because I'm sure that even if they also represent a different political vision, political views, the different life concept may be, different social groups may be, different sometimes even age groups, and so, but they know what they are doing and what will happen. I have at least more or less this kind of feeling.
Yeah, certainly there are different times, but returning back to your generation, then you suffered disappointment after that romantic period that was full of so much hope and hope for the future. And then comes the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Gharapagh War, the dark and cold years that I think every woman in Armenia remembers vividly till today, because they had to feed their children and they had to wash the clothes and they needed to cook and you know, they couldn't do that. Did you experience that as well?
Physically, yes. Of course, I was here and I was part of this society. I had a small daughter. She was born in 85, and actually she was 5-6 years old in 1991, in a time when this crisis started, let's say. And she was a big professional in changing the filters for these heaters, etc., and help my grandmother, because we used to live together, etc. Of course, we experienced all this, and we had so many funny and dramatic stories related to all these different heating systems, about the lights in the houses, etc. But and it was a difficult time. But in the same time, sometimes when I remember this, I think that we were very happy. First of all, because maybe we have been very young. Second, because, you know, we had what we had. And when you are in a crisis sometimes, and it was very vivid on a war also, on a front line, I would say, in Karabakh, it's very easy to understand bad and good. And when you try to choose something in your life, you find easier answers, frankly. then when you have multiple choices and you have better knowledge about the good style of life and a lot of different consumer things, etc. So it was very difficult time, but it was also a very happy time also because we had so many guests in our houses, because people just tried to be together.
There was a sense of community, right?
It was a sense of community, but also it was ironical situations, because we had a big apartment in the center of the city and many friends of us who couldn't just get their distance homes and houses because no transport, because no cars, because no money, they just stayed in our house, and it was during several years, I would say, and it was really, really happy young time. And I think that it's good that we had this, because it gave us a lot of experience, some wisdom, and also understanding that life could be different.
Sure. From what you knew to what you were forced to endure.
I don't want this time come back, frankly, but I'm happy that I had it.
Sure, sure. I mean, every experience that we go through in life, whether it's a collective experience as a people, as a nation, or a personal tragedy or experience, it helps us to become the people that we are, and it shapes our opinions and our mindsets, and it you know, while it was very difficult and tragic, yet it helped, like you said. It's very interesting. Nune, you are also part of that segment of Armenian society here in Armenia that have been very active in the NGOs, in the civil society sector, in the media world. You are now the director for 20 years, I think, now, of what used to be known as Internews, which that's how it's, you know, stuck in my brain, and I keep having difficulty with brain of almost everybody. And now it's the Media Initiatives Center. And you know, in 20 years, Armenian media has evolved, has tripped up, has gotten better, has gotten worse. You know, in the first years of independence, I remember reading somewhere that newspaper circulation was very, very high. You know, there's Azg or Yergiv that had 50,000 readers, and today we don't see that anymore. You know, I don't want to compare it, you know, of course, with social media and internet. A lot of that has changed, but it's really interesting how readership has changed, how journalism has changed in the country, and you've been part of that process.
It was completely different tradition when independent media started in Armenia. The tradition of the reading newspapers, the tradition of the consumer the information.
Because it was always state controlled.
It was after state control, but this was in any case in the mind of people, and we had really the culture of the reading newspapers. Doesn't matter if they were the Soviet newspapers or not, but this was the society which actually have been reading, and it was a period of time when everybody has been hunger for the information, and people went, and when they saw this independent word, independent opinions, expressions which have been printed in these early newspapers, of course they went after that. It was really a period of time of the, let's say, the blossoming of the Armenian independent journalism, but it was a short time, because then again the economic crisis came, and I'm sure you know that the first independent newspapers were not really independent, because they have been a part of a different political parties, but maybe this short period demonstrate evolution of this kind of media in the world also, because in the world many newspapers also started from different political parties, etc. So I think it's absolutely normal development and normal evolution. But then economic crisis came, and let's say the passion to have this independent information and independent newspaper have been broken because of the economic crisis, have been broken because they didn't material business model after that, I think. So all these conflicts within these visions, within the freedom, between the freedom of expression and the ability of the economy of the country and the public of the country support this idea, was really dramatic for the Armenian media and Armenian journalism. And also in the same time, I think that it was a very short period of time when people really recognized the importance of the freedom of expression, which was in the same time, which you mentioned, when all these freedom movements rised and people started to go on the streets, etc. And they understand the importance of the freedom of expression and the freedom of the thoughts and freedom of the media. But then I think, again, because of a very difficult circumstances, because of the very high level of the immigration from the country, etc., maybe people just lost the importance, the feeling of the importance of this. And I think that together with the continuing problems of the economy in this country, which again influence the media and media market very much, I think also we don't fully value the freedom of the media. This is not in our blood.
It's not only about freedom of media, it's freedom in general. I don't know if we've really defined what
because
freedom
we're
means.
talking about journalism, so I'm coming from this freedom.
No, of course, certainly. But you know, when as you say that, I begin thinking that sometimes we really don't understand that concept as a concept itself. You know, many years ago, a journalist friend of mine, when I was trying to wade through the murky waters of Armenian media, because you know, you would pick up a newspaper and you would read a headline and you would think, my goodness, really? And then the same issue or the same event or the same, I don't know, political discussion was presented in a radically different way by another newspaper. So as a reader, how do you understand what the reality is? And he said to me, he goes, you know, to understand what's really going on in the country, you have to read 3 or 4 different newspapers: a pro-government newspaper, a very radical opposition newspaper, somebody who pretends to be objective and you know, unbiased, and then plus another newspaper to really get to the bottom of the truth of what really goes on, because the truth is always the first victim of these kinds of things. How would you view the media environment today with the advent of internet, with social media? Because you know, everybody now is you know, citizen journalists. I call them keyboard warriors. They sit behind the comfort of their computer. They have Facebook and Twitter, or they have a blog, and they say whatever they want, and then they can create as many rumors as they want to. So how does media survive? How does Armenian media survive in that environment today?
I think that these all problems which you actually mentioned are not the problems only for Armenia, of course. It's world problems, and the difference may be that we didn't come to the really development media, and we have all these challenges when we don't have a media,
developed tradition.
Developed tradition and developed market. And it makes the situation a little bit more chaotic, because people didn't come again to value all this as a freedom, as a kind of the freedom, and they have now a lot of choices, and they don't understand how to filter this, because the people like your friend and like, for example, my friends and like us still are the small part of the society, when they can read, let's say, 10 different sources of information, 10 different papers online, watch TV, etc., and finally come to some point of view and understand what's going on, or just have their own background, which also based on 10 different newspapers in the past, and then they have their personal filters and they understand what could happen and what could be going on. Public in general, in any case, have 1 or 2 or maximum 3 sources of information which are very often close to each other. So that's why, of course, I think that Armenian media is very chaotic for me right now. Still. Yes, I think so. And we don't have really, let's say, yesterday we had this conversation: left papers or right papers. Oh, we don't have. We don't have this. We don't have this kind of culture in our country.
Discourse
it's
or
not
ideology.
A real political discourse. And newspaper can present something, and then after 10 days, he could just change the view completely, and you don't understand what
is the position.
What is the position? And the same is about some TV companies. Depends on the owner. Depends on the on our political view on this particular moment.
And his political connections,
absolutely disorientation for the general public, of course. That's why I think that Armenian media is still in a process of boiling, and maybe after this we will finally come to some filtered, really quality media. We have some. For sure we have some which maybe need some more resources, some more professionals, and they will become a real quality media for this country. But I think also that it's very important to educate the public how to do all this filtering, how to recognize a media which they can trust, how to verify information using all these social networks and using all these new opportunities which given by the technology. And this is what we actually believe is a part of media education, and this is something which we are a big fan of, and maybe a pioneering in this, and trying to give more knowledge about the work of the media to the different generations and to the different social groups.
That's absolutely the biggest valuable thing that you do, is to educate us, the public, journalists, to be able to do that. I want to end our conversation today with something that I think has been really lacking in our lives lately. And you have a daughter, you're a mother. I want to talk about hope. I want to talk about hope.
It's a difficult conversation.
It's a difficult conversation. All of our conversations are difficult. But this one in particular, because we seem to have, and that's why I wanted to start our conversation today about that period in your life that was full of so much hope. And the period that we live in today, as citizens of Armenia, as women, as mothers, as active participants in Armenian society, because you didn't need to be doing all of this. This is hard work, what you do. But you're doing it, I suspect, because you want to see improvement in this particular sector of which you are an expert. But as from that perspective, how do you see hope today in Armenia?
It's really very, very hard question, actually. First of all, coming a little bit back to the beginning of your sentence, I'm doing this also because I have a great team and people who share these beliefs and values and maybe some hope which we have. And of course, the hope, it's not something stable. It's coming down, it's going down, it's coming up, and it's all changeable. And it also very much depends on the political situation. I always keep in mind a very good sentence from Alexei Tolstoy's literature. He said that it's impossible to have a personal happiness without the happiness of the public. I don't know if it still exists, but it's actually something which I feel during 20 years of my last period of the work, during all my, let's say, life, during all my experience, because I was living together with the people of, as you said, my generation, through all these tragic and dramatic events. And I really felt that you can't be very happy when the country is not happy. And I always try to share my life with the life of this land. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think that maybe this was not the right way, because so many people left the country and maybe they found their happiness with the other public, which was much more happy than this one, other society and other country. I don't know, but when people lose the hope, I think that they don't act, and this is and they are coming to the depression and apathy, which is now very serious part of the mentality of our society. At least this is what I see, and this is what I also feel very often. Also as a part of this society, I feel in my heart. So that's why it's very dangerous when you lose the hope. How to keep it, this is also another problem. And maybe this young generation who actually try to act, they try to keep this hope by acting. Maybe it's not act by hoping, right? But do something.
But perhaps through their actions, they will stir again the emotions of hope that sometimes we as older people have lost along the way when we see. But I think I'd like to end today with that one thing that you said, that personal happiness is very difficult to achieve when there's so much misery around you. So I think that if all of us try to spread a little bit of hope and happiness and to make some kind of effort to pull everybody up so that we all feel that hope. Otherwise,
you know, I think also the media plays a big role in this, but it shouldn't be, we shouldn't try to mix up different terms and different visions of the media. Media should be always very critical. Media shouldn't give only positive. It should be balanced. It should give also an information which give people the hope to people, but actually to give, to say truth, to be a critical, to support also the concerns of the people. This is also the main function of the media, and actually this is another part when the truth is a part of the hope, I'm sure. Because when people trust, they really have this hope. They can understand and they can share all this difficult situation and difficult economic situation with each other, but they have to trust, because again, coming back, the hope is a part also of the trust.
Right. And Nune Sargsyan, you're also the truth. You are also part of Armenian society. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time from what I can see around me, a very busy and chaotic work day that you have ahead of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, girls.